Welcome to Our One Blessed Mess. This is Ben and Liz, and we're here telling our story of raising 6 kids that we had in 8 years while managing an entrepreneurial home with 2 businesses, plus homeschooling and currently raising 4, almost 5 teenagers. And we have 7 chickens, 2 dogs, and we're about to have some goats. And that is honestly just to keep life interesting. And so today's conversation topic is pretty exciting because I feel like I need to do a drum roll.
Drum roll, please.
Drum roll, please. What are we talking about, Ben?
We are talking about teenagers.
Yes.
And specifically, we're talking about raising enjoyable teenagers.
Yes, and it is possible.
It is possible.
It's possible.
We know there's a stigma out there.
Yes, we do.
Which states that, teenage years are difficult and they're hard and, there's all kinds of drama. And we're not going to dispute that.
No.
But what we do want to say is that we have great teens and we've had some of our best years with the teens that we have in our family. And so we just wanted to bring a different perspective where we can bring some hope and some life to the teen years and
faith, hope, and love. That's what we're hoping to bring.
Yeah.
It's some faith, hope, and love.
Faith, hope, and love. Yeah.
Yep. And we enjoy raising teens. Actually, we've enjoyed it. I remember this advice. I've shared this before on other episodes that your mom gave me when we first became parents. And I was so nervous about the terrible twos. And I was like hearing about three-nagers and, oh my gosh, teenagers. And, I worked as a youth leader. You worked as a youth leader. So we had been around teens and we were teens once, right?
Oh,
remember? Yeah, those years. And I remember her giving me this advice and she said, I have enjoyed and loved every stage and every season. Mm-hmm. And I really took that to heart and I thought, okay, because I literally would find other moms that had what I would consider successful teenagers or other families that had successful teenagers. And immediately I would ask, what is your advice?
Right.
Can you pray for me?
Right.
Especially because when I did the math, I was like, there will be a season when we have 5 teenagers. We're 4, almost 5 right now.
We're almost there.
We're almost there. And so, getting that perspective, I think early on helped me to embrace every single stage and season and not wish it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the Bible promises that children are a heritage, right? In Psalms 127, 4 and 6. So we wanted to realize that
right
in the teen years, just as much as we wanted to in the, cuter years when they didn't maybe talk back as much.
Or, they smelled, but a different kind of smell.
Right. Yeah. They weren't as smelly.
It was a little bit different.
Or as awkward.
Awkward. Yeah, they're awkward to hug, yet they need hugs. And I know we're going to be talking about that in a little bit. We want to talk about that physical part of touching and hugging
important.
Your kids. Yeah, it's super important. There's a lot of science behind it. But we have a fun story that we're going to share as well in this episode. But go ahead, let's jump in it, Ben, because this is good. We got to dive in.
We got a lot of information to cover, so we're just gonna hit the ground running here. But we do want to say that teens today, we feel, they are facing some unique, maybe even unprecedented challenges.
Absolutely.
And what we're seeing is we're starting to get on the tail end, but the first generation of teenagers that have really kind of grown up in that digital phone, screen-based lifestyle that's become the normative behavior for teens. Mm-hmm. And so much so that even now, we looked at some statistics. Mm-hmm. Basically, teens spend 7+ hours a day on screens. Now, that's not including schoolwork. That's 7+ hours of entertainment.
That's on social media. That's gaming. It's
phones,
all the things.
It's all the screens. All the screens.
Discord,
all the digital stuff.
All the.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's unprecedented. I didn't do that as a teenager.
Neither did I.
As a teenager.
No, because the internet came out.
Yeah, right.
I was a teenager.
That's right. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are things that no other generation has faced, I guess is what we're trying to say. This is something that's new. And so we have to be really careful because our teens are kind of an experiment right now.
They are. And there is more data that's coming out.
Yeah.
And, I feel like the world is waking up. I feel like parents are waking up. I know we've woken up.
We have definitely woken up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we'll get into all that.
We will. That will be a future episode. But
and we are going to do it. For those of you who are like, stop telling us it's a future one.
Stop teasing it and do it.
We're actually doing it. It's the one that's going to be after this.
Yeah,
we're
hoping to make that
digital.
the next one. So
yeah. Okay. So keep going.
But anyways, so that screen time issue is at the forefront of one of the challenges that our teenagers today face.
Yes.
and what comes along with that, right? Like we know that teenagers are going to be exploratory. They're going to buck the all the rules that we've put in place. That just comes naturally with every generation of young adults and teenagers is going to want to challenge the status quo.
Right.
The problem is that the teens are challenging in different ways, digital ways now, whereas before it was maybe more embodied or physical. But the rate of pornography and even sexting that's coming because of just the digital outlets that are available to kids and teens is kind of nuts. And so we're seeing a lot of like just bad results.
Yeah, there's a lot of anxiety, depression, self-hatred.
All kinds of crazy stuff that's coming.
On exponential levels that our generation didn't not see and did not understand or
and studies are coming out. Like we're getting data now.
Right.
We've got a good decade under our belts with the kind of social media experiment, the phone-based lifestyle experiment, and how it relates to teens. What kind of things happen when teenagers are using that as the normative behavior, and they're being withdrawn from the physical world. And so this is kind of really intense, right?
Yes, it is.
And so we're going to talk about, again, I know we keep teasing it, but we're going to talk about more about that. But this challenge is unique to this generation. And we want to say that even Christian teens don't have it any easier, because on top of the digital stuff, now we're starting to get some data that also is not too great about our churches. And one of the things that we found was that 1 in 10 of Protestant churches have dealt with a known incident of child sexual abuse. So that's intense. That's 10% of the churches, right?
It is.
And it just, it's not great. And so not only do we have that where we've got some rampant stuff happening, but then on top of that, the anxiety, the normal anxiety that teens all experience, Christian teens aren't immune from that. Okay. So Journal of Religion and Health talk about how the rates of depression and anxiety are very similar between Christian teens and non-religious teens. But Christian teens are 40% less likely to seek professional help. So there might even be like just an extra layer of maybe not measuring up to the morality of their parents. So,
shame. They're feeling shame, so they won't go to a professional because of what they're fearful of the repercussion when they really need help.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
So we just want to lay the groundwork and just say, hey, listen, teens are facing unprecedented challenges that maybe our generation didn't face, and definitely generations before us didn't face.
Absolutely, because they were dinosaurs. According to my kids, they're like, Mom, were you alive when there was black and white television? Really? Okay.
There's some fun jokes there.
Yeah. Just stop. Keep going.
So that's a little bit of the negative picture that we're trying to paint. And you don't have to think too hard to realize that some of the stuff is definitely true. But we do want to say that we found some success with our kids. We can genuinely sit here and tell you that the teen years have been great so far.
We've enjoyed them. We really are enjoying them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great.
It's the truth.
Yeah,
and
it's the truth.
It's not that we don't have our challenges.
No, there's definitely challenges. And
we've had to work through some issues with some of our teens and even some of the issues that we just talked about. But really, we've enjoyed it by and large. And it hasn't been that rainy cloud over our heads that we thought it was going to be.
And also, I mean, we are really enjoying them as people.
Yeah.
Like, we want to be in their space. We want to spend time with them, and they want to spend time with us.
And they want to spend time with us. I think that's the biggest thing that we've seen is like our kids actually get upset when we leave, and they're excited to have us back, even the teenagers. And it's like, whoa, is it supposed to be like that?
Even our most introverted.
Even most introverted.
Our most introverted one that we have out of the whole bunch. He loves us and wants to spend time with us. In fact, he'll even come in and sit in our bedroom. We have a chair in there.
Yeah.
And he'll come and sit in the chair, and he'll just start unloading and just start talking. And I mean, I'm just blown away.
It's different than what we thought it would be.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
And I don't know if it's because I bought into all the negative hype, but it's just, I was putting my seatbelt on and expecting something way more intense. And it's been intense, but it hasn't been bad. It's been actually really good.
No.
So we just want to talk about a few of the things that, we have done that I think help that experience we've had. And again, we're not experts. We've done a lot wrong and we made a lot of mistakes, but we do want to share with you because we feel like these things that we are doing and have done have made a big difference as it relates to our teenagers and how we enjoy them.
And we have people who ask us.
Exactly.
I mean, even this weekend, we had a family in our midst.
We did.
And the question came up, after they've spent the whole day with us, they're like, wow, like, what is it? And so that's how come this episode is happening.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we're like, well, what is it? And we got into that conversation. And so we just want to help. We want to help share the goods.
Right.
Some things that we found.
Yep.
Hopefully it helps you. If it doesn't, that's okay.
Yeah.
But we hope it does.
So the first thing that we wanted to say is the first time obedience training.
FTO.
FTO.
FTO is one of our first episodes.
You want to sing the song?
Slow obedience is no obedience.
All right,
so
there's
listen
more where that came
and
from.
obey.
There's more where that came from. If
Yes.
you go back and listen to our first time obedience
There's
episodes.
2 episodes.
Yeah, there's 2 episodes.
We did 2.
So we did want to plug that. There's an older episodes, but the concept is basically that we start with immediate obedience. And we know that kind of sounds heavy and harsh, but it's really majoring on the consistency of when adults give commands that we have expectations that they're met. And there's research that actually correlates with this being healthy for children and then later the teen years.
Right.
So we wanted to bring some of that up.
And we do because as we were getting ready for this podcast and finding these stats, it's like, wow.
Yeah, stuff we've known all along, but now it's qualified.
Right. It's qualified. We're actually walking through it and we can point back and go, because we made this decision then, we are experiencing the fruit now. And we didn't really talk about that in our first time obedience podcast. Our episodes, but let's get into it.
Yeah.
I think this is so good, so rich.
So one of the things that we found was that when children who experience consistent, clear expectations, they show 36% better outcomes in the teen years when there's conflict. So this is basically saying if parents lay down the law with consistent, clear expectations of their kids, that actually helps the parent-teen conflict resolution in 36% of the teens and parents that this study was taking a look at. And that's the Journal of Research on Adolescence. And again, that's by age 16. So that resolution, that conflict resolution was affected at 36% in the positive way. So really setting the law at an early age can definitely bring,
and it does
reap those benefits.
Well, because the kids feel safe.
They do.
They know.
And that's what we experienced is that when we gave them something consistent and we modeled something consistent and it was both of us together, then it was like they didn't have to second guess or they didn't have to play the game where they would, come try to get their way by challenging you versus me or me versus you.
Well, they did try that some. Let's be clear. Come
true.
on. One of us is more of a softie.
We had a good front.
One of us is more of a softie, but we established between us that if those things were happening, if a directive was given by one parent, I wouldn't,
we would
like if
hold
you
the
said
line.
we would hold the line, but maybe privately I'd be like, hey, that was really silly. Why are you doing that? Or vice versa, you know?
We wouldn't challenge. Yeah, that's a good point though.
Right.
We wouldn't challenge each other's authority in front of the
we
children.
backed each other up.
Yeah, we'd always back each other. And then privately we would say, hey, that was a dumb thing you did, and then that would start a whole nother argument. But, that's for another episode.
20 years. Keep going.
So anyways, that's a pretty cool stat. Yep. And then here's another one. This is from Child Development, which is a journal. Teens who view their parents as legitimate authority figures from an early age were 42% more likely to disclose risky behavior to those parents.
And honestly, we've seen that. Like our kids are coming to us about
things. They tell us all the things.
I know, even today. Which apparently I have been sworn not to say anything.
And I was sworn not to say too.
Yeah, so independently.
But we told each other.
And great, that child's going to watch this.
That's right, yeah.
Wonderful.
Hopefully we didn't just cancel that effect.
But it's good.
It is good.
It is good.
And I think it just means that like we shouldn't be afraid to be authority figures, right?
Yeah.
We want to make sure we're nurturing our kids. And we talk about that in First Time Obedience, those episodes.
Oh yeah, we really break that down. And it's not an authoritarian
right. It's not authoritarian.
No, and we talk about that in those episodes. But
it's authoritative but not authoritarian.
No, there's a big difference.
Big difference.
Big difference.
So, but that does reap this benefit of the kids when they hit the teen years, feeling more likely that they can trust you with something really important, and disclosing those risky behaviors.
Right, because your word is your word.
Yeah.
You've already established that.
You've already
pattern.
established your trustworthiness. Yes,
and
that's
the kids see it. Yeah, and they know it.
So here's another one. The adolescents who are raised with clear boundaries reported better communication with parents compared to those with inconsistent boundaries. All right, so that's Family Process Journal. So again, basically that trustworthiness, that clear expectation, the authoritative boundaries, not authoritarian, but authoritative boundaries, report better communication. The teens, the adolescents, they report better communication than those with inconsistent boundaries.
And you know what? I was just sitting here thinking, as we're talking about this, like we were not perfect all the time. And these, honestly, like I feel like the younger years are like a blur, and there were highs and lows and highs and lows. But we stayed the course. We did the best we could. And here we are, we've got a shipload of teens, and we've got emerging teens. We've even got one that's leaving the nest this summer. Like there's so many things that are going on. Yeah. And, even though we weren't perfect in it, we're reaping the fruit.
We are. We really are. We put the time in, and now we're reaping the dividends, really. The dividends, from all that training. And it's been amazing. Time. We can literally sit here and just say, this is worth it. Totally worth it. So, we know it's hard, but it's way worth it.
So this weekend we had a family with us, and I gave a directive because some chores need to be done. There's some things that need to be picked up and that kind of thing. And I could go around and do all of it, but it would probably take me a good 30 to 40 minutes. But we have an army. So I'm like, hey, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. And the kids stopped what they were doing, our kids, and they went and did it. And, the mom that was with us turned to me. She goes, wow. She's like, they didn't even talk back. They just did it right away. And I thought, I didn't even know, you know what? You're right. Like, because they knew that. And it really only took like everybody doing their thing, maybe 5 to 6 minutes. Yeah. But within a super short amount of time, all the things that needed to be done got done. And then it was fine. Everybody could go do what they needed to do. So it does pay off to do that in the beginning years so that they know when you say it, you mean it, and they do it. So listen to those episodes if you need more information on it.
So again, just
break it down.
Establishing those boundaries early on, and that consistency early on pays dividends in the teen years. So another thing that we felt was super necessary to talk about. Super necessary.
This is like exclamation point, highlighted, starred, arrows pointing.
Yes.
We need to talk about this. Big old
asterisks here.
Yes.
This
bold.
Is that teens need embodied time.
You're speaking my language right now, Ben.
So what does that mean? What is embodied time? Right? What is that concept?
Are you asking me? Are you?
Sure. Yeah. Let's ask Professor Liz. What is embodied time mean?
It means face to face.
It does.
It's your favorite thing.
Not phone to phone?
No, not phone to phone.
Face to face.
Face to face. It means touching and connecting.
Synchronous communication.
Okay, you guys, Ben is really into this. I can't even say the word correctly. Say it. Synchronous. Okay, he's really been into this. It's kind of funny because he's been researching this for a couple months.
Yes, and it also goes into the whole mutual mind concept, which I know I've mentioned on a couple other episodes, and we'll dig more into that as well.
One point. Okay, but he'll come in, like say it's morning, I'm having my coffee, and he'll sit across from me, and you'll say, hey, say the word again. Synchronous time. And so explain what this is.
So I look at Liz and I look her right in the face.
Yes, he's looking at me.
And I give her my full attention.
Yep.
And she gives me her full attention.
Yeah, eyeball to eyeball.
And we're not distracted by a phone.
Nope.
We're not distracted by anything else going on.
Kids.
It's like the sanctity of the moment. Yeah. And we are living that to the fullest with one another. And we're prioritizing embodied recognition of the other.
But what happens is you start mimicking my face.
I do. I start smiling and you start smiling and then I'll joke. Yeah.
But there's so much.
There's so much brain chemistry going on.
Here we go,
you
guys.
When we do that with one another, it's insane. Like,
can you imagine having your morning cup of coffee with these kind of things? This is what he's saying to me. I'm like, wow. Okay. So if I scratch my face, he scratches his face. And he's like, but I do feel like you're really listening to me.
Right.
I know that.
But that's the goal.
Right? That's the goal.
That's the goal. Is we're giving each other our full attention.
And that's what our teenagers need.
But why? Why do we do that? Why do we
keep
give
holding my hands? Keep holding my hands.
Why do we give each other our full attention?
Because we're synchronizing.
Yeah, and basically throughout the day, everything else is taking our attention.
That's true.
Including our phones, our watches,
notifications,
our children,
emails,
all the things. So it's like we're living in a day and age where that synchronicity is not as common as
rare.
It used to be.
Yeah,
it's becoming rare.
Yeah, it's becoming rare, and it's like disappearing in our world. Because think about it: you're in line at a grocery store. What is everybody doing? They're all on their phones.
And you know who it's disappearing the fastest for?
Yes,
our teens. Our teens, guys.
Makes you want to cry.
We as adults, we've lived through enough life where we didn't have those major distractions.
That's right.
To us all the time.
I mean, in the grocery store line, our biggest distractions was like the gum or the magazines there. Now, I mean, the kids are just straight on their phones. I mean, kids are getting ran over because they're not looking up when they're crossing the street. Like, it's just crazy.
So, yes. So the whole concept that we're trying to say here, guys, is that we need face-to-face with our teens. We can't just expect to send them a text message. Or a little video clip that they can watch later. We need that synchronous time. Video calls is a little different. I mean, if you can't do anything but a video call, that's great. That's definitely on the right pathway. But being in person, embodied, using our body to interface with another person, with our teens, that's what we're talking about here. That's proven to decrease loneliness.
Yes.
It's proven to help with anxiety and stress when we actually prioritize our relationships.
Yep.
And there's just so much like brain science that happens when we are with one another and our sense of identity is being formed, because that's how we belong, is when we connect embodied.
And so I'm going to insert something here real quick. So our oldest son has been working. He's in college. He's about to fly the coop. Like, there's so many things that are going on. So he isn't in our presence as much as the other kids, especially because they rely on us for a lot more things, like getting to where they need to be and all the, all the stuff. And he's more independent. So he's not always eating with us. He's, he's out with his friends. But what was happening was, even though we will still have family dinner and things, we still were not getting that one-on-one time with him. And so a couple months ago, we made a decision. What can we do so that we're face-to-face without distractions, spending time? And so we have a standing date with him one day a week where we go and we get breakfast with him. And it's just him. There was one week we brought his younger brother, who's
now an adult too.
Who's now an adult as well. But his schedule isn't as crazy as this son, because we are recognizing we only have a few more months before this son is out. And it's changing. It is. And so us doing that and being with him, and looking in the eye and talking with him and stuff, and putting aside all distractions, all the other things, he has just eaten that up.
He has.
Yeah, he really has. So that's just that's an idea to put a plug in your ear if you need that.
And so a lot of people say that you need at least 15 minutes of synchronous face-to-face time with your loved ones. And so we were just extend that to your teens. Yeah.
A day. Yeah.
So 15 minutes a day with your teens, that I believe will make a huge difference.
So, and I just want to say that, we have a lot of kids in our house, right? There's eight of us living in this house. And so there's 6 of them. And so 15 minutes a day, that really adds up to quite a bit. So I kind of break it up throughout the day, and I'm kind of tracking that in my mind and making sure that I'm having touch points with every single kid.
You're better at it than I am.
Well,
much better.
It's because probably I'm the mom and I'm the nurturer. I'm the nurturer naturally. And if anything's going on with any of our kids, I've said this for years, they go on my target. So, they're all going through different stages and growing and feelings and emotions and boys and girls and, all the things that are happening, and, their little hearts going pitter patter for love. We've got some spring dance coming up. And so I know, but anyway, but when they're going through something, they go on my target. And so what I mean by that is, like, for the week, whatever that child may be going through. So it means that I'm probably having more face-to-face time with them. I'm praying for them. I'm communicating with them just to see them through getting over that hump. Cause they need that embodied time.
They do. Yeah. They do. And along with that embodied time, that 15 minutes of the synchronous face-to-face, you also need physical touch.
Yes.
And I know that this sounds counterintuitive, because generally when the adolescence comes,
Yes.
kids start to pull away physically,
Especially boys.
from their parents.
Yes.
But what we found is that it's still extremely important
Mhm.
to hug our teens,
Yep.
to reach out, affirm them, be affectionate with them. And there's studies that show that this actually not only helps them with the concept of feeling loved and having better security,
Right.
but actually mental health as well. And it helps with body image. So there's several studies out there that correlate this sense of being affectionate and being warm, even with your teens,
Yes.
that will help them actually feel better about their own bodies.
Right.
That's crazy. to
Yeah.
me.
And there was a lot of information that was floating around, I know, for a while about like a 10-second hug or a 12-second hug. And so, I started counting under my breath with my kids, especially my teenagers, making sure that I was hugging them. Now, they are awkward. Some of them are super tall and they're very thin.
Might not be easy.
It may not be easy. It's like hugging a bag of bones. I'm like, okay, they're clanky, they're awkward, and they're just, but what I'm finding is when I get to probably the sixth second as I'm counting, all of a sudden they lean into me. They stop like being tense and they just relax and they lean into my hug. Now I'm little, compared to our boys, a lot of our boys. And so I'm sure that they're just like, okay, my mom's so little, but I make sure to hug them. And even this morning when we had devotions, I made sure to sit next to the teen that happens to be on my target right now that I'm praying for, that the Lord is showing me things about this young man.
Right.
And so I'm sitting next to him and I made sure to have that physical touch. I made sure to sit right next to him so that he could feel that. And you know what ended up happening? He ended up leaning in on me and putting his head on my shoulder. And he's a big kid,
Taller than me.
Taller than you. And so it's so important. And there's so much health benefits too. I mean, I'm thinking about people who are in nursing homes and things like that there's been studies on if you're touching them when they're sick, like those hugs and stuff help you heal faster.
Yes. In fact, Nature of Human Behavior came out with a study that said basically physical touch, such as hugging, can have a medium-sized impact on not only our physical health, but our mental health as well. And so that was a recent study. And, we correlate just physical touch is good, especially if it's done appropriately. And especially if we already know that, we've set that foundation of first-time obedience. And now we're moving into more of like that friendship and that, affectionate time. Not that we weren't doing it earlier, but that we continue to do it even in the teen years.
Well, it was easier when they were little because they would come and they would crawl into your lap and they would be in your bed, or you would read them a story. They were smaller, you had to pick them up and carry them around. And I'm just thinking about, our one son who's very introverted and, he doesn't voice his needs like some of the other kids do. And it was, I think 2 days ago, I just saw him there and he's one of the ones that, I make sure I hug every day because some of the other ones hug me easily. They want that because they're more physical touch.
Right.
And so I went over and I gave him a big hug. And, usually he's like a beanpole and he won't, he's super stiff. And as I was giving him a hug, of course, as I'm counting and making sure I get to the seconds, not that it has to be a goal, but I'm just like, I just know when I get to a certain point, they're going to relax. Yep. He totally relaxed and his face was beaming. And it was like, I looked him in the eyes. I did that, looking him in the eyeballs. And I just said, your dad and I are so blessed to have you in our family. And you're such a gift to our family. You're such a gift to me. And you're such a gift to your father. And
so good.
Yeah. And
so
just,
important.
Yeah. And just encouraged him. And I mean, his eyes and his smile was beaming. And that's the one that's, on the spectrum. So, sometimes those kids don't want to be touched, but not when you have me as your mother. I'm hugging you.
That's funny. Okay, so thirdly,
Yeah.
This is super important too. So we'll put another asterisk here.
Yeah.
Setting digital limits.
This is a very big one.
Setting digital boundaries, just like we do in first-time obedience, right? We're the gatekeeper of kind of the authority and the consistency and the expectations with our kids. Well, now we're moving into more of the digital gatekeeping.
Right.
And this, I think, makes a lot of difference.
I think this is probably, out of everything that we've talked about, this is slightly more important.
Yeah. Because
of the age that these kids are living in. And I think as parents, we know something is wrong, but we don't know what to do or what.
You told me this for years. Explain, like, your little spidey sense was going off for years and years.
Yes.
Just lean into that for just a second.
Okay. On which part? On when you brought in games for the first time?
Yeah. And why?
So we had our fifth baby, and for whatever reason, Ben felt like it was time to bring a Wii into the house. And I think the oldest at the time was 6. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to enter and, bring that in. And granted, the Wii had been out for years.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't.
And someone was getting rid of it. And,
they gave it to
like
us.
A good opportunity.
Yeah, it was a gift. And he's like, I think this is great. It'll be fine. But I was like, I don't know. I just think because I had seen, people become addicted to the stimulant that the game gives. Like there's this whole, we'll get into that in our episode, but we'll get into it. The dopamine. Cycle. The dopamine cycle. And so I just knew it was unhealthy. And granted, we were playing like Wii tennis and it wasn't bad, but it was the beginning of the beginning.
And you were mostly concerned about it, not from the fact that you thought all video games were bad.
No, not at all.
But you just were concerned about once we go down that path.
That's literally what I said to you.
It's so hard to turn around.
Yeah. And then what happened?
Yeah. And so we went down that path and it was very hard to turn around.
But we've turned the ship.
We've turned the ship because we've come into some research that we feel like is detrimental. It's very important that we make sure it's not detrimental to our kids by just doing the unmitigated, unlimited digital, hygiene.
Well, we weren't unlimited. We've been very conservative.
We have.
Like when you look across the board at families,
it's true.
We are extremely conservative.
Yeah.
Our children did not get cell phones, I remember when one of our daughters was in 5th grade, she was one of 3 5th graders who did not have a cell phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the whole grade.
In the whole grade.
Class. She was the only one in the class. But,
right. And, our 2nd grader was like one of 8 in his class.
Yeah.
Period.
Right.
That didn't have a cell phone in 2nd grade. So, we've been very conservative.
Yes.
But tell them why.
There's still some things that we're now realizing that we want to make sure that we're setting healthy boundaries.
Exactly.
And so each kid is a little different, right? Because each kid has different proclivities to that digital addiction. And it's what it is, right? We're not against all video games. We're not against all social media, all that stuff. What it is taking a look at your kids' natural proclivities to digest something that's unhealthy and not understand how to put a boundary there. And so if you get that spidey sense like Liz was getting, lean into that, right? Your own kid. Don't just do whatever other parents are doing just to keep up with the Joneses. Like you've got to be responsible for that child. And if being on social media at 8 years old is going to be detrimental, then don't do it, right? Don't just join because other people are doing it, right? And so we felt that, and we started realizing that with our own kids. And so we kind of squashed the idea of just letting them join in with other kids as far as having a smartphone, doing these other things. And I think it's really started to turn the ship for our family. The other thing that we do is we use accountability software. Oh, yeah. And this one's important because kids are going to find stuff even when they're not trying to. Yeah. So if you just have an unfiltered internet, it's basically like telling your kid to go take a sip from a fire hydrant. It's just impossible not to get blasted with all this other stuff.
It's nearly impossible. I'm even for me, and I'm an adult. There's stuff that pops up all the times. Yeah. So
it's super critical that we are being that digital gatekeeper to make sure that our kids aren't getting exposed to stuff that they are not able to handle, right? This stuff is becoming increasingly intense, and it's happening to kids earlier and earlier. And the research that we see is that this actually can have devastating effects in the well-being of our kids.
And it does have devastating effects.
And it does.
It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the accessibility of it is something that is just so crazy, right? We heard stories of our kids on the way home from school on the bus. And there's some kid showing videos that are inappropriate
completely inappropriate
on the bus, and our kids are like, "Whoa, what the heck do we do?"
Yeah, we also had a neighbor Yeah.
Yeah,
There's been all kinds of things.
It's just wild. Your kids, like, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yep.
Right. And so having accountability software, being able to set like clear expectations about what to do when they come across this stuff, letting them know it's okay if it happens.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing, is not shaming.
Not shaming,
right,
but set a clear boundary and a clear expectation that your kids know to come to you.
Right.
And then make sure that you aren't mad or upset. Instead, like, we use, we have to use the Holy Spirit, number one. But number two, like, we know this day is going to happen. Expect it, have an answer for it, and be ready to, like, be able to just come alongside your kid and really just, like, show them love and show them a pathway forward, right? Don't be surprised. Don't be shocked.
Right.
Have a plan and be ready.
Well, and we'd much rather them do it on our watch than out in the world, because, and we've talked about this in other episodes, but we want them to have that experience while they're under our roof. Care.
Yeah. And I'm not that we want it to be normative or anything like that. But we also want to help them handle what happens when things go wrong. Right. And we want them to be able to feel secure with us, to be able to share. Yeah. And so again, that goes back to, like, knowing that we have clear boundaries, we have clear expectations, and then we feel that they'll be more likely to share, and they have. So far it's been
now,
good.
The software that you use, are you going to share that?
So I use a couple different things. I know that one of them is really popular is Pure Eyes. I don't use that one. I'm trying to remember the one that I actually use.
Oh no, we'll put it in the notes.
I'll put it in the show notes. But there's several of them out there. They're all really good. They all do lots of different things, and there's all kinds of ways that you can do it. You can filter on device. So Apple has, the iOS that you can set content restrictions with. That happens at the phone and the actual software, and so you can lock down apps. You can lock down the internet. You can do whatever really you want with your kids' phones.
Do.
So we do that. Yeah.
We do that.
Android does the same thing,
yes.
Right? You might have to go someone that's a little bit more technical to help you, but there's ways to restrict access. And there's even other things where, like, if kids are getting text messages, things like that, there's actually software you can put on that filters images and things that come through text. So there's ways to really be vigilant about it. We know that we're not going to catch everything, but if we're intentional, I think that's going to help a tremendous amount.
Exactly. And also, like we said, with the kids do encounter something, that there's already been a conversation that we've had with them.
So they don't feel the shame immediately. They know to go to us.
Yeah. And we've talked about it as a family. So now the younger one is older. We can talk about it with everybody. But for a while there, it was just with all the older ones, just as it's age appropriate, because they're on devices.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And we know that we're in a world that, I don't know how you could live without the internet. Like, there's no way. You have to learn how to do it. So.
Yeah. And even if you can invite your kids into your own struggles, right? If this is an issue for you, and you can talk about how you've overcome and how you're getting accountability, even with your own, like, digital hygiene, like, that is tremendous.
Well, time blocking, when you're on social media, you don't pick up your phone until a certain point in the day, to check emails and notifications and things like that. So anyway, we will get into more of that in another episode. We have a whole thing that we want to talk about.
But we do have a story real quick about our accountability
this is very,
software.
Very funny. This is very funny. So this just happened in January.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We were traveling. You and I were traveling.
We got the report.
We got a report that came in. It was about a few days past, right? Because we get the report a few days past.
Yeah.
And Benjamin, what was in the report? What was in the report?
Well, the keywords were nude and woman, or nude and woman body.
Yes.
And so we were like, oh boy, here it comes.
So we were actually in a coffee shop, and you called me over and you said, oh dear. And I was like, oh no. So then you start going through who in the world would be looking that up.
Right.
So we're thinking, okay, it's got to be the boys. We're thinking all these kind of things.
Yeah.
And you sent a message, because not all of our kids have cell phones. We have an age that we give our kids their cell phones. And so anyway.
Which is 16. We can say that.
Yep. 16, because they're not.
A lot of reasons.
A lot of reasons. They're not ready.
Do the research on that.
Yeah, do the research on that. And then, yeah. And we'll talk about that in another episode. But anyway, and so the ones that do have cell phones, you asked the question.
Yeah, I sent a text out. I was like, hey guys, we're not mad, but this is what came across our filter. we're going to have a conversation. So we just kind of like prepped everybody like, hey, this is
coming.
This is coming. Be ready. We're going to ask questions.
And
we're
then
do the whole thing. Oh boy.
And then, so then it was like, one of our children did not do well with that and just started panicking.
Yeah.
And it was really wild. And this one doesn't handle correction very well.
Yeah. We have to be very sensitive with this particular person. And so I kind of just said the same thing to everybody. And so this kid started going into hyperdrive and was like, could it be this? Could it be that? Could it be that? Oh no, I didn't do that. I didn't do this. Oh, maybe it's this. Oh my gosh, maybe I messed up. And so we were like, well, I guess we know who the guilty party is.
We're thinking.
That's what we're thinking.
Yeah. And I say to you, maybe we shouldn't have sent that message just yet. Maybe we should have waited because we still had a few more days until we got home.
Yeah.
And this individual turned in their phone and they were like, I'm turning it off. And I mean, went to the extreme, which by the way, may I say, I am like that. That is kind of part of my personality where it's like, if there's any possibility that I could be in trouble, I'm like to the nth degree, so black and white.
Right.
Ben's shaking his head right now because I am just like, I don't want any part of anything.
Yeah.
It's like this conviction in
it's
me.
It's like 100% on or 100% off.
Yeah. So
there's no in between.
As this kid of ours was reacting this way, I was like, oh, I get it. I totally get it. So we get home and it's been a few days and then we have a family devotion. And at the end of devotions, you bring it.
So after family devotions, I'm like, okay, guys, this is what happened. We came across these words in the search.
Nude body, woman, nude body.
We just want to say we're not mad. We just want to say that we do expect you to come to us and let us know if it was you. And, we want to give you some time.
Right.
So take a couple of days if you need to, so you can get your courage up. But we really do want you to come on your own accord.
Exactly.
And tell us if it was you. And again, we're not mad. I shared some of like my journey and, it just was like, hey, this happens to everyone typically at some point in their life. Like, we want you to just own it. Uh-huh. So not even what?
Maybe about 10 minutes later or so, I'm in the bedroom and, we have a I guess I should say a kid come in.
Yep.
And it's basically like, so this is going to be really awkward, but so I was the one that researched nude and woman's nude body, and the reason is because my body's changing and I didn't really know I know we've read the book before because we like have them read a book as they're developing. We have like the girl book, we have the boy we have a girl book and the boy book, but she hadn't looked at the girl book in a while, and so she's just kind of curious and just really wanted to know. And I said, well, and she says, and when I typed in, nothing really came up because we have these filters. Yep. And then I put in this. And so this is really awkward. I don't know what to say. I don't want to say anything in front of the whole family. And I was like, and then she says, I went and I found the body book and, that we went through. And then I looked through it and it had the answers. And I was like,
great.
Awesome.
So that was not the kid that was freaking out.
No.
So yes, that was a little bit of the drama of our family filter, and and it ended up being a cute story, but
ended up being
we had a little bit of a
and then we
a hunt.
It was a hunt, but then what was good is she came to us. Yeah. And also what was good is that the other one who was panicking, like we walked them down off of a ledge, right. I mean, they're talking like, well, 3 years ago. And we're like, it wasn't 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
We've already talked about 3 years ago and we've had that discussion and we're not bringing any of that up because that is over. And we know, okay, so here we are 3 years now. And this is last week. And anyway, it was just very funny, but oof.
Yeah. So anyways, I think we've hit that point to death there, but just know that like the kids are going to look to you as the model for that exemplary behavior with digital devices. And so a lot of this stuff you can't cram down your teens' throats unless you're modeling it too. So just keep that in mind. That's something that we've really tried to work hard on. We're not perfect. Obviously, we still mess up. We still do things that we say we shouldn't be doing.
You mean binge watching fail? What is
Fail
it?
videos.
Fail videos. Ugh, I can't handle them. Of course, they all
Yeah, I
sit
was about to say my kids don't complain when that
no,
happens.
they all
really
sit
like
together
that.
and they just watch, one person getting hurt after another
my
person.
gosh.
I can't handle
She
them.
can't
I
handle it.
leave.
We eat it up.
I start doing laundry
Yep.
or something.
Yep. Okay. So last point. This one might be the most impactful. I know we've said that for like every point.
It's all of
This
it.
one-
It's the whole enchilada.
This one's really good.
It's
This
the
one's really good.
enchilada.
Yeah. This is kind of the third point we wanted to hit, is that an active father
Yeah.
builds the best teens. And what I mean by that is not that we are diminishing a mother's love or a mother's impact
No.
on teens.
No.
That can't be understated, right?
No.
Moms are nurturers by nature, and there's so much that comes from the mom. But we have so much data, and I mean mountains of data.
There's a lot of data.
Oh
and
my gosh.
There's so much
I
on
was
here. I
surprised.
hope you can get it all in.
Yeah, I probably won't be able to
Okay.
to state all these facts, but my gosh, if you ever wanted to find out what a very deterministic factor is for teen success,
Yes.
go look at the teens with fathers, without fathers. And I mean, an active father makes a ton of difference. And so I just want
Absolutely.
to hammer that home real quick. There's 10 that I cherry picked that are super, super good. So I'm just calling this the dad factor. And I'm going to just rattle these off. These are all from different independent studies. Teens with involved fathers are 75% less likely to develop depression and anxiety disorders. That's from the Journal of Family Psychology. Father involvement is associated with a 48% reduction in suicidal thoughts. That's American Journal of Preventive Medicine. Teenagers with actively involved fathers are 80% less likely to be incarcerated.
That's
U.S.
amazing.
Department of Justice.
That's amazing.
Adolescent pregnancy rates are approximately 7 times higher for father absent female teens. That's from Child Development.
Wow.
Teens with involved fathers are 39% more likely to earn mostly A's in school. U.S. Department of Education. Father involvement increases college graduation rates by 41%.
That's so good.
Teens
Wow.
with involved fathers are 68% more likely to report feeling secure in their own identity. Young women with healthy father relationships are 42% more likely to report satisfying romantic relationships.
Yep.
Young men with positive father influences are 45% less likely to exhibit violent or abusive behavior in their relationships. Teenagers are 63% more likely to continue religious practice when fathers are actively involved in family faith. National Study of Youth and Religion. There's so much more, and I will drop a link to some additional stats, but I was just blown away. I mean, I knew that having an active father makes a difference,
Yeah.
but I didn't realize how much data we have collected especially over the last 2 decades, that just make that point so massively. You can't understate it, right?
No.
And
you
it
can't.
and it really helped me to see that, like, my time with my kids is important, my time with my teens is important, but then it also made me think, like, okay, who could I go and help that I know maybe doesn't have an active father in their lives? It just made me see the potential of even my own time as not only sacred, but just super influential,
Right.
to be able to plug into other orphans and maybe even widows who are raising teenagers. Like,
Yep.
dads out there, like, we have something to offer that is super important and can be super influential
Yes.
in kids' lives. And we know we can't replace an active father who's a natural father, but we can supplement, right? We can do some work that can make a massive impact in the success rate of these teens.
It's good. And I was raised in a single parent home.
Yeah.
And my dad, we would only see him one day a week for like 4 or 5 hours just because he worked a lot. And it was on his day off, but he was a mechanic, so he's always working when we were there. And there were men who, other fathers that were in our church community that still poured into us kids.
Yeah.
And with my brother.
Yeah,
and, it's like the Lord sent helpers. And
Right.
so, it's looking back now and thinking about the examples that were around. And I love my dad, but he only could do what he could do. And
Right,
truthfully, when
right.
we were there for those 4 or 5 hours, by the time we hit the teen years, we really didn't really want to be around him either because it was boring. He was working on cars, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, but, there were men that stepped up to the plate,
Yeah.
and came and did pour into us. And I didn't even know these facts.
Yeah.
And, when I look at my sisters and myself, and my siblings, it's like, well, most of us pretty much made it. I mean, most of us did. But
Jury's still out on
some of them. But no, I'm just kidding. But seriously, it matters.
Yeah, it does matter.
Yeah.
It does matter. So what do we do? Like we recognize this, not those stats, but we recognize the importance of having dad kind of come in, especially in the preteen and teen years.
Right.
And we didn't naturally know that. We had another family that we looked up to that was like, hey, you got to do this. And we're like, okay, great. Let's try that.
Yes.
And so they told this family that we modeled these two behaviors I'm going to talk about from, basically it told us when your child gets about 12, set aside an entire year where the dad takes that kid out on dad dates, right? So they're spending one-on-one time, that embodied synchronous time.
Yes. And why is it dads? Why is it
It's
not
dad
moms?
because dads have this ability to call out the destiny and the identity of their children.
Right.
And I think it's the way God made us as fathers. We have that authority, especially when the kids are younger. Like it's important for, I think, the fathers in particular to be that authority figure. We already talked about kind of the elephant example from First Time Obedience. I love that story. This definitely applies here. But even more than that, instead of just being the person who says no all the time and sets the boundaries, you also are the one who tells your kid, hey, this is where you're going now. I'm calling you into your destiny, calling you into adulthood. I'm championing you. And there's even like studies about how culturally there were rituals.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Where you would call young teens into manhood, into womanhood, and how we've, as a society, as a secular society, we've gone away from those rituals.
Right. Right.
And so this is one way that we can bring that kind of concept back, where the father is saying to the teen, hey, it's time to now take the next step.
Yeah.
We're progressing. We're being called into our destiny and into our identity. And you don't even have to use that language. You just be like, hey, this might be where your job is. But it's that same concept of like you setting the vision higher for your kids, not just to go play video games all day or to jump on social media or whatever, but think beyond, living with your mom and I. Think beyond that. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What do you want to be?
Yep.
Casting a vision for your kids to like move out of the nest, I think is super imperative. And it's a traditional role that the fathers have taken on.
Right. And I was just thinking too, because you're going to talk about dad dates and then what came with that. But, I've had people ask me, well, how come you're not the one that's doing mom dates?
Right.
And I thought, well, probably because I'm the mom and I have the heartbeat of the child already. Like I know what's going on. And it's not that you were absent or anything. It's just that one-on-one time with just dad is so precious.
Yeah.
And it shapes them.
It has.
I mean,
and we've seen it.
Yeah,
We've seen it. Like we've done it. How many kids have we done it with so far?
You're on your fifth one.
So I'm on my fifth kid.
You only have one more to go.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've been doing dad dates with our
at
fifth
12,
child.
At 12
She's
years
12
old.
right now.
Right.
And so that's been a lot of fun.
So when they turn 12, let's get practical. So when they turn 12, you start your 1 year of dad dates. And at the end of 1 year,
I try to do it once a week.
Once a week.
Doesn't always equal that. Sometimes more like twice a month.
Life is so busy. Yeah. But, and then you'll even make up dad dates and do like a really big one. Yeah.
Really fun dad
Really fun dad date, But then at the end of the year, you go on a dad trip with them and they get to pick and choose what they want to do.
That's right. So it culminates. Cool. Yeah. So the end of that year period of doing the dad dates, we do a dad trip, and that's like a coming of age trip. Again, it's like a ceremonial or just like a rite of passage. And I let the kid plan the trip. I give them some parameters, so it's not just like carte blanche here.
Well, there's been some ideas. They're like,
oh
yeah, there's some. I want to go to England. I'm like, well, if you're going to England, mom's going. Yeah. So end of story. That's not happening.
No, it's not happening. We're staying in the States, but typically we've
always stayed in our state.
In state, actually.
Yeah.
Not just the States, but in state. But typically, the kid has some ideas of where they want to go, what they want to do. And so I give them some parameters. We talk about how long it's going to be, what they really want to do, and pick the top 3 things. And then we plan it out.
Yep.
And it's been just a blast. I mean, it's been so fun. I feel like I get to know them. I feel like I get to know their heart, what they want to do.
Oh, yeah.
We have loads of conversation, especially on the way down. Sometimes we'll listen to an audiobook.
Yeah.
There's just
Imagine
so much
that.
time to get into the heart of the kid and figure out, like, how can I champion them?
Right.
Where do they want to go in life? What do they want to do? How can I just come behind them and just kind of give them that gentle push? So,
well, and in the midst of you having the dad dates and the trip,
yeah,
it's like you're building that friendship with them
And
because
rapport,
they're
yeah.
and the rapport, because they're about to become of an age that all that matters to them is really friends. I mean, they
Yes.
want their mom and their
That's
dad,
true.
but
That's
we
true.
want them to know that we're in their corner. Mom's
Yeah.
always in their corner, but
Right.
dad is really in their corner, and dad is always in their corner,
Yeah.
but it's just like reestablishing that. And here we are, we're years past from even our first couple of the kids going through it, and
Yep.
it has paid dividends.
And it really has. They all
Yeah.
talk about their dad trips. They all compare about their dad trips. They
Yeah.
say who got the best dad trip. It's like,
Well,
it's so
some of
funny
them-
to see it.
Some of them really like use their wheelhouse and
Oh yeah.
they
We have some kids that are very competitive, and so they were able to tweak the system and get all kinds of
all kinds of
goodies out of their dad trip. Some of them got even video game devices, which
things. Yeah.
I'm kind of going
Well,
back.
I
to
was
my
thinking
word here.
about how one of our kids like worked it so well that he got to do iFly twice.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Some of them know how to
Anyway.
work the system. Let's just say that.
anyway, yeah, it's fun. It's fun, but it's been really good to do.
It has been
And-
good, and we highly recommend it. And so that comes to the conclusion of those 3 big points that we wanted to make. Is like,
Yeah.
we want to make sure that you start with first time obedience. We want to make sure that we're setting that foundation. Then going into needing embodied time, and then also, having an active dad, and like really being intentional with bringing the father into the early teen years and setting like a good relational foundation. So we've seen that, and it's been amazing. And we really feel like that has helped our teens. And it's
Yeah.
just been the X factor that we needed. So
Yeah.
yeah, we
So
really
good.
appreciate it. And so just in closing, like we wanted to just state that it's really about that marathon mindset, right? It's not about like trying to do all this all up at once, but just incrementally, like setting some things, doing some things, thinking that, you're going to have years where your kid's a teenager and all these little things add up. And so
Yep.
start early and often
Yep.
and make sure you're making those good deposits that equal into some big, outcomes.
And I would just want to say, I've said this before in another episode, but I got some of the greatest advice from a woman who had 10 kids. And I just asked her one day, she was here and some of her kids were already married and she had grandkids and she still had some at home. And I said, okay, I have some teenagers now, but I'm going to have a lot of teenagers like you. I'm like, what is your advice? I need I need the secret sauce. And she
Yeah.
said, well, she goes, they're still kids. She's like, but I think of them as brownies. They're not completely done in the middle. They're still ooey gooey, but they're crusty on the outside. And I have carried that little bit of information as I've been working with all of our teenagers, watching them, grow up, their friends here at the house and
Yeah.
just all the things. And just remembering that they're big, they're puppies. They're just bigger
Right.
and they're
Right.
floppy. And, they're really, honestly, they still want to please you
Yeah.
and they still want to do good. And, yes, their emotions are going up and going down and their voices are cracking and they're a little smellier and, they're not showering. I mean, I just found out apparently that one of my teenagers went for a solid month without bathing.
No, a month?
That's what he told me.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you, which makes sense because with helping him with his laundry, there was hardly ever any clean underwear. And so I'm so grossed out. Like
Oh my gosh.
literally he
That's a
brags about
parenting
it.
fail.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, how did that happen? And he thinks it's really
Was it during
cool.
the winter?
I have no earthly nor heavenly idea. And I really hope that he is like counting one day as a week. Like it was just 4 days or something.
Yeah. That
But
sounds
anyway.
more realistic. Anyway.
Well, I don't know, but this is what he told me. Okay. But my point is like, they still want to hear they're doing good. Like
Yeah.
we always hear like if you have a criticism or something, sandwich it in between 2 slices of praise,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
So,
That's right.
remembering that they're human and they're developing, and we're just here to guide them, and we're going to make them responsible adults. That's what we're working towards.
right.
And we want them to be independent, and we want them
Yes.
thinking and forward thinking. And, this is a journey. This is their middle ground until adulthood.
Yeah.
And I don't want to look at it like how I was so fearful and just like so scared. And now it's like, I love teenagers.
Yeah.
I love teenagers.
So much so that you volunteered to teach a class.
I've been teaching a class with a bunch of teenagers, and I am just loving it. I mean, I just see the beauty in these kids, and they're fun, and their humor is hilarious. I may
Right.
not know all the weird words like skibbity or whatever those words are now, but anyway, I know if our kids were in here, they'd be like, Mom, or Riz, or I don't know, whatever the words are. But I'm enjoying the teen years,
Yeah.
and I'll enjoy the next season for
Right,
each of them.
right.
And, I don't want to squander it because there may be tension.
Right.
Are they my best friends? No,
Yeah.
I'm still their parent,
Yeah.
but they are, I have friendship with them.
We do have friendship
We have
with them.
friendship
Yeah.
with them,
It's
and we
important.
want to hang out with them. We want to
do.
go do things with them. We want to play board games.
Right.
We played Texas Hold'em, and it's
Yeah.
hilarious. Like it's very competitive in our family.
It is.
We do fishbowl, which is basically charades, and the kids come alive, and we do all kinds of things. We go on hikes together and stuff. And is it all roses? No, is there arguing and bickering and all the normal stuff. All the normal stuff. But it's just part of learning. And instead of looking at it as like, when can I get past this season?
Right.
Like
Right.
when they were
Enjoy
little
it.
and you're like, when can I get through the potty training? I'm like, I'm wanting to savor
Yeah.
these moments with our teens.
good.
And
good.
so anyway, I hope that's encouraging to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope it is.
I think so. Yeah. And again, we just want to stress that we're not perfect and that we're not experts, but we really felt like these couple of things have made such a big difference in the raising of our teens, our enjoyable teens.
Our enjoyable teens. Big floppy puppy
That's right.
teens.
Crusty brownie, gooey in the middle, teenagers.
Some are more gooey than others.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, this is true. So we have a couple scripture takeaways that we'll end with, but Deuteronomy 6:4-7. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and you shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. And so, I just feel like even what we're doing with teenagers, it's all about setting the expectations, setting the foundation, teaching them the way they should go, sharing with them God's commands, and we're just depositing, layer by layer, brick by brick. We're helping them build their whole person. So I just feel like that's kind of a great takeaway from today.
But make sure you read Galatians 6:9.
Oh, go ahead. Why don't you do it?
It's so good. And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. And so mamas and dads, don't give up. Just don't give up. If you need help, reach out, to those that are around you that maybe are in your community. Ask for prayer, be talking to your teenagers, communicate with them.
Yeah.
I promise you, if you go before the Lord in prayer and you begin to make your petition known, He'll give you ideas. He'll give you insight. Like I told you earlier, when I've got a teen that's going through something, or any of our kids that are going through something, they go on my target. Whether it's, being conceited or maybe bragging or lying or,
of course not.
Please, bickering, anger, there's things that are happening, and it's like, okay, the Lord gives me insight, as I begin to pray for that particular kid, the Lord will give me insight. And I've invited others at times to our pastors to speak into our kids or to pray with us.
Yep.
And, it takes a village.
Yeah,
but don't grow weary. Do not give up. Do not give up.
For all you dads out there that, might be minimizing your impact, like look for outlets where you can speak into the lives of other children who don't have an active father.
That's good.
So just be cognizant of the need for that, and be aware of how much power and influence that you have just by being a father in a father figure in other people's lives.
That's so good.
Yeah, don't grow weary in doing that either. So,
well, that was quite the topic.
that was.
Whew,
That was.
boy,
It was a good one.
enjoyable teams. So we just want to say thank you for being a part of our One Blessed Mess today. Don't forget to subscribe and to share with a friend who may need this encouragement. You may know somebody who's raising some teens or has a teen, and you're like, hey, I've got a great podcast that you should listen to. They have an episode on raising enjoyable teens. They have 4, almost 5.
It's a youth group.
It's a youth group. We literally have a youth group in our house. But just remember to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We do have some pages set up, and we love hearing from you when you DM us and send us messages or comment. I mean, it is so exciting to hear from you and what you get out of what we're sharing. And also, if you have a question or you have you're wanting to hear us talk about something, let us know, because we would love to tackle that as well. So until next time, embrace your beautiful mess, because if our mess can be blessed, then what, Ben?
Then soak in yours.
That's right.